Okay, my friends, it keeps getting better and better. I've been talking about the oceans were boiled, causing the Great Flood, and also the Mudfossils. Well, CNN, and I don't care what channel you like or don't like, don't give me that kind of stuff. Oh, I hate CNN, you can't believe a word. I am saying what they're saying across the board now. It's just that this is very convenient to show. They're saying that Drabin and her colleagues conducted research in Barberton Mahawanja mountains of South Africa. And they're saying this. This is their claim, which we will speak about in a second. And their claim is a massive space rock, estimated to be the size of 4 Mount Everest, slammed into her Earth more than 3 billion years ago. Well, let's take a closer look at that claim. Okay, I expect CNN would want to hear what my opinion is and my research shows, because they're saying that the tsunami, this is the MIT people, the tsunami swept across the globe from this impact of something. And heat from the impact was so intense it boiled off the top layer of the ocean. Yes. When oceans boil and evaporate, they form salts such as those observed in the rocks directly after the impact. Well, yes and no. Dust injected into the atmosphere from the impact darkened the skies within the hours, even on the opposite side of the planet. The whole Earth was covered. Yes, I agree with that. The atmosphere heated up, and the thick dust cloud prevented microbes from converting sunlight into energy. Well, any life on land or in shallow waters would have felt the adverse effects immediately. In other words, it would have wiped out a lot of life. And those effects would have persisted from a few years to decades. I agree. So let's say that all of the big creatures on Earth would have died, and with this impact would have virtually caused all of the waters on the Earth to churn and bring up things from the ocean depths, which they claim they did. Now listen to this. This is the killer. In the deep ocean environment, it was a different story. But in the deep ocean environment was another story. The tsunami churned up elements, now listen to this, such as iron, which is blood, and brought them to the surface. Now listen to this. Meanwhile, erosion helped wash coastal debris into the sea and release phosphorus, which is the membranes. We got bloody tissues and membranes. And they say it came from the meteorite. Well, where did the meteorite get the phospholipids and all that stuff? Well, they have them. That's true. The lab analysis showed a spike in the presence of single-celled organisms that feed off iron and phosphorus immediately after the impact. Yeah, those are the mosses and the things that started feeding off the dead bodies of the creatures. They were the sea... the sea moss and all that stuff, seaweed and all the little algae and all of the things that wouldn't have been killed off probably. They would have been in the waters probably enough so they weren't boiled like all the rest and washed over. Now this exact event was the Triassic layer. It caused a red bed, which was boiled off flesh, literally boiled off red flesh, that coated the layer. That's the red bed, and it's worldwide. 100% of the world has it. Then above that was the gray clay, which is the other things, the trees and the cellulose and the other body parts and bones and all that stuff. But the first thing would be the flesh. And that made the red bed. Then all the rest of the stuff laid on top of that. That's called the gray clay. It's gray, it's green, it's different places in the world, but it's a layer on top of the boiled flesh, which is the red bed. And then on top of that is the black cap, which is where all this stuff came back. The top layer, all this stuff came back, fell down after years the sky's darkened with that, and then so you got red bed, gray clay, black cap, and I have that right here. I have those absolutely, and I have a human footprint in the middle of those three layers, pushing the gray clay down below the red bed. So it happened on the same as one event, the Triassic. It wasn't like 50 million years of deposits. It makes no sense whatsoever. They know it now that the Triassic was like a weekend. All right, so don't forget now, they show a spike in single-cell organisms eating off blood and phosphorus, which was membranes, immediately after the impact, because it was all, coral and all that kind of stuff. And then it says life rapidly recovered. Yes, the life in the oceans, and there was, the humans and so forth, they lived through this impact. It said before the impact there was some, but not much life. That's exactly what Yale says. They're just totally wrong. It was the same as it was now. There was creatures here, and there were giants, and the giants were what was killed, and mine are DNA tested. And I have the samples here, and all my DNA, like this is DNA tested too. This is a human lung, right? And there's no question it's a human lung. And that's where the heart would have sat. And you see how it's flat like a pancake? They all died like that in the flood, flat. And that's a human, and it's been DNA tested. It's a human lung. It could be tested more. You get blood out of there in 2 seconds. And I have other rocks that show they're just basically pieces of meat. And I have discovered new body parts based on my discoveries about fascia. And it may even lead to some medical advancements, I'm hoping, because the fascia is the key to your immune system. It coats every organ. Every single organ has its own type of cancer because the fascia is different on every organ. And the fascia is what protects it. If you break through the fascia, that's the invasion, you get cancer. It's not that hard to understand. But you have to start to understand mudfossils and deal with reality before you can deal, and I have found that's a very difficult thing for people to come up with, is the ability to open their mind enough to even listen. And when you don't listen, you're never going to hear. I can guarantee you that. The problem. They can't accept the reality of the situation that we face. In the ancient text, 100% of the nations around the world, 100%, every culture talked about giants. They talked about dragons. They talked about gods. They talked about battles in the heavens. 100%. They have that in common. Well, I have shown you that is not out of the realm of possibilities. And I'm showing a hair follicle here, which is this. You say, well, that does not look like a hair follicle. What it is, because this is it right here. All right, now, what are we looking at right there? That's the erector pili muscle. That's where that attaches. All right, this is the sebaceous gland right here. And slid down a little bit, and it's right here. This is the hair shaft coming up through the top. This is coming down to the root ball. And those two little dots right there are the vein and artery, the blue and the red at the bottom. This is 2 inches wide. I don't know how many times bigger that is than a normal one, but I think it's hundreds of times at least bigger than the ones that are on your head or my head, or in our face or whatever. I don't know anything that's alive today that would have a 2-inch wide hair follicle. Do you? No, you don't. So these are giants. Now, my other ones here are DNA tested, and they're human. This I don't know what it is. Could be anything. But it's definitely a hair follicle, and that's definitely the hair shaft, and it's flat-sided, and they tell me that's from a curly-haired person. All right, now, I have tons of different lungs and body parts coming out of my ears. And we're going to go through them over and over and over until this starts to become accepted. And I think it is starting to become accepted now. They're just talking about the oceans boiling and so forth. And Yale has agreed. Watch this. This is Yale's paper. And this has sort of been really hidden under the radar. All right, this is really funny. They're going back 3 billion years, MIT. Now, Here's Yale. Yale goes back to 550 million years ago. But it's exceptional preservation of soft-bodied creatures. That just means creatures. Promoted by silica-rich oceans. And that's because the salacious ooze from the bottom of the ocean came up due to this scrubbing. And I described all this stuff to Derek Briggs at Yale years earlier, before they wrote this paper, taking credit for making this discovery. And they call it the Ediacaran biota. That just means a place in Australia or somewhere. And biota means creatures. And they say it was exceptionally preserved, soft-bodied creatures, and it's a strata worldwide, a 3-layer strata worldwide. The red bed, the gray clay, the black cap, worldwide. And they go on about the silicification, which is the silicates coming up, and they can't explain. They can't explain any of it. And they say this was before there was any creatures living on Earth. There was nothing. There was just no teeth, no bones, no nothing. I'm showing that's totally wrong. That's absolutely wrong. I mean, I have bones. That's a bone. I have fingertips. But the key is, this is nucleophilic invasion and substitution. So whatever this was encapsulated in, which in this case happened to be raw, basically red mud, it absorbed that red mud and invaded it and substituted and stabilized what was in here. Now, there's going to be different things, like where the blood was. You see how dark that is? That black is marrow, and this is fascia, which turned into feldspar. Feldspar is aluminum silicates. And aluminum silicates are right there, aluminum silicates. And where are they? Right next to phosphorus. And what is phosphorus? Membranes. These are membranes. And almost every rock has a feldspar on it. It's I believe it's the most common surface on all rocks. But anyway, this is what it is. Now, they should take a look at my stuff. My stuff's DNA tested and CAT scan and everything else. I don't know if they did any of that stuff, but they agree, yes. And they're saying it's this fossil provide an accurate window. Yes, it will if you could watch it. Now, listen to this. This is on their campus. All right, now this is what they say on their campus. All right, this is the same time that Derek Briggs and his crew wrote the paper about what I presented to them. I don't care what they say. I presented this years before that to Derek Briggs. And in 2016, they're saying that the earliest community of complex sea creatures lived in a warm, slimy petri dish. You know, that's what they want you to believe. And a broad array of exotic species, yet we likely wouldn't know it all about it, except for a quirk in the chemistry of the ancient oceans. That's because the salacious ooze came up off of the floor of the ocean. All right, let's see what we get. How heavy is salacious ooze compared to water? Because it sank to the bottom of the oceans, and there's a couple miles, I think, deep of it. So when we got hit by Venus almost, it all came up. Now listen to this. Salacious ooze is denser than water, but its density depends on its composition and the water content within it. Well, generally has a density of 1.9 to 2.3 grams per cubic centimeter when dry, depending on its water density is 1. So it's 2.5 times. All right, and it sinks to the bottom of the ocean. It's a ooze. Since salacious ooze is denser than water, it would sink rather than float. However, if it is mixed with a large portion of water, the overall density would decrease, potentially making it less dense than its dry form, but still generally heavier than water. Well, what happened when it all went like this? This ooze, this, like soup, it came up and it's called super saturation. The waters became super saturated with that silicates, and the silicates actually invaded, in some cases, as I will show you if I can find it, they replace stuff with replace it with silicon. And that, my friends, is a heart. And that is the aorta. That is another tubing of the heart that comes up here. And there's another one coming up here. That's how they have a bunch of tubing coming out the top. And this is where the buckets of blood are on the bottom. That's the heavy wall, left ventricle wall. And that's the wrapping of the muscle. You see that? That's the wrapping of the muscle that wraps around the heart. And they just twist like this. And that turned into virtually all silicates. You can basically, well, other things have turned into literal, like glass. As a matter, well, hold on, give me 1 second. Give me a second. All right, you see that? That's selenite. And this, my friends, is tendon. And that is the abrupt transition. And right there is the glue that glues the abrupt transition to the muscle or wherever it was going to. You can see it's very obvious. And you can see all those layers. You see those? Those layers are the layer of tendons. And these are the tendons, and that's the abrupt transition. Now, selenite comes tendon, but it can be in any form. It can be muscle, which I believe this was. All right, it's primarily selenite now, but that's all red blood in there. And red blood is in muscle, but it's not in tendon. Almost none in a tendon, virtually nothing in a tendon, as you can see. All right, it's only where it glues. You need some pretty good blood where it glues together. But in a muscle, it's everywhere. Now, and I think this might be bone. I'm not sure. But the curve to me tells me it's either muscle or bone. Now, if it was muscle, I would expect to see a little more red blood. And I do see some. But this here, I don't see any, to be honest with you. But they almost look like sarcomeres. I don't know. It's hard to say. It's very hard to say. Sometimes the blood will completely leave if it's just blood. But this is highly mineralized as well as being the bloody. This is actually glue. It's a glue. It glues. It really glue. It's a glue. So this could very well be muscle. I don't think it's bone. I don't know. These are the kind of things, but I'm sure that is muscle. I'm going to go with muscle on that one. Okay, my friends, I read all the ancient texts, and one of them is the Colburn Bible. I don't take anything at face value. So, oh, this must be this and this must be that. No, I see what they had to say. And one of the things that really intrigued me was waters will be swallowed up by the land, seas will boil, the heavens will burn brightly and redly, there will be a copper hue over the face of the land, followed by a day of darkness. A new moon will appear and break up and fall. Yikes. I don't know about all that stuff. It's supposed to be prophesized for coming possibly even during our times. I don't know. But the seas boiling did happen before, because they say it's going to happen again, and this is what happened before, and they called it the destroyer. Now, I see it as Venus, which now is in a perfectly good orbit. Now, can it come around and smack us again for some reason? I don't know. Who knows? But let's see what Velikovsky had to say, because he did the research of what they actually said when it actually happened. This, I believe, was written after the impact of Venus. Okay, as with everything, you get all these different interpretations. This one says, the Colburn Bible dates back 3,600 years and offers unique and enlightenment insights in the past to both challenge and affirm our present-day thoughts, probably. The Colburn Bible was wisdom text studied in the days of Jesus These ones say that the Colburn Bible was dates back to 3,600 years ago, and this one says that Colburn Bible written by Celtic priests around the time the New Testament was being created. So you have all these different interpretations. This one says that the Colburn Bible written by these Celtic priests in the first millennia of this common era, which is after Christ. So, but the thing that struck me was the water's boiling. Now, what does Velikovsky have to say? Because his research goes back to the people that wrote when it actually happened. All right, so I asked Chat, did Velikovsky say the seas boiled as Venus almost hit Earth? Yes. Immanuel Velikovsky, in his controversial book, Worlds in Collision, in 1950, that's 75 years ago, proposed that around 3,500 years ago, a near collision between Earth and a comet like Venus caused catastrophic events on Earth. There was more than one catastrophe. I think Velikovsky recorded 3, but the one that I'm most interested in is one that leading to the boiling seas, widespread volcanic eruptions, other dramatic upheavals. That's the red bed from the boiled red flesh, the gray clays, and then the black cap from all the volcanic eruptions, all that stuff. Now, Velikovsky's theories were not well received by the scientific community. They destroyed him, as they contradicted established understanding of physics, astronomy, and geology exactly as mine do. But I have every bit of evidence. He didn't have the evidence I have. However, his ideas gained a following in some circles due to their bold reinterpretations of ancient myth and text. They weren't reinterpretations. They were the interpretations. We reinterpret them by saying these people were crazy for writing all these crazy things about giants and all that nonsense. No, he went back and said, what did you write? And he said, well, here's what we wrote. And he said, okay, let me, in the museums, in the cultural centers, in the libraries, everywhere. He went to everywhere, in statues and monuments and memorials, and recorded what every culture said. And they all had virtually the same story. Little differences here and there. And it was a different impact here and there, because when it almost impacted the Earth, it didn't impact the hit head on. It glanced off. So where did it glance off of? I think off of Mohenjo-daro. That's where I'm pointing to now, that it glanced off of there and bounced away. Now, but at the same time, it would have wrenched the Earth from spinning. The Earth is like spinning, and it does spin, and it's a globe, and it spins through space. And as Venus almost hit it, it stopped it, and literally stopped the Earth from spinning for a day. And in some places, they felt darkness was longer, but it's because of the tilt. It tilted at the same time, and all of the waters slushed around the whole Earth and caused this great, terrible flood and destroyed everything. So he claimed that the seas boiled. And the part of his broader argument that ancient catastrophes linked to celestial events, but though it lacks empirical support from modern science. No, it doesn't. I have all the support you need right now. Okay, listen carefully. The tri in Triassic comes from the Latin word for 3. Now, they're starting with 252 million years ago. And these 3 layers, it's the names for 3 distinct rock layers, which is the red bed, the gray clay, and the black cap, are prominent in geological strata worldwide. From this time period in Europe, well, everywhere in the world. In Connecticut especially, the excellent Triassic. These 3 layers are the lower Triassic, which is the oldest, which is the red bed, the middle Triassic, the gray clay, the middle sequence of rock. The upper Triassic is the youngest, and that's the black cap. These formations represent the different stages of the Triassic period were key to identifying and classifying this period in the history of Earth. So they're marking the history of Earth by these three layers going back to 252 million years ago. And these three layers were laid down in a period of 50 million years approximately. Well, I have a different take on this, and I'll show you. I have Triassic rock right here with the three layers. Let me show you. Okay, this is a smidge hard to hold here, so I'm going to do the best I can. These are the balls of the guy's foot. There's his heel, and he stepped here and pushed this down through this layer here. This layer was above that layer, and it was pushed down through. It's completely different material. It's what's called the gray clay. This is supposed to be below this gray clay. It's the red bed. Oops. And I will show this. You'll see it on the side of the foot. Now, the reason I'm showing you this picture is because this is the black cap right here, and it's very heavy, and it sits right on top of there. I found all three layers, the red bed, the gray clay, and the black cap, all sandwiched together here. So this footprint is in between the black cap and the red bed, and literally pushed itself down through the red bed. So there's really no question whatsoever. This red bed and this gray clay were wet at the same time. You see the gray clay is down below? The red bed should be down here, and the gray clay should be up above, you know, over the top of the red bed. It's not. The red bed now is, I mean, the gray clay has pushed down through the red bed, and it's laying below the red bed. So there is zero question that they were both wet at the same time. No question whatsoever. Impossible to happen any other way. So this, in my opinion, was the result of the Great Flood, and the red bed was from the boiled oceans, boiling off the red flesh, which created the red bed, and then the other stuff landed on top, the gray clay stuff, which is this stuff. And in this case, it was pushed down through the red bed because the guy stepped on it, running, trying to get away, I imagine. And you can see, it's even these little things, I call them suck-ups. They show that where he impressed here, it came back up and made those little dimply-looking suck-up things. It's what it was. It just happened, and it's exactly what they said. There was a great flood, and this is it right here. And this, all of this is on the surface of the Earth right here. It's just everywhere. And right down the road is the Dinosaur State Park. They got them everywhere too. Only mine are human, or well, this one is. And there's a whole pile of stuff out there. This was dug from an excavation at my house when I had a room added on, and it wasn't a big, deep excavation. It was very shallow. Well, I don't know how deep they got to go to put a footing in, but that's where they went. There's no big foundation. So they put the footing in, and they made a big pile of debris down here, and they put it off in the woods. And there's a hand there that's 3 feet wide. This came out of there. When I picked this up, I freaked out. When I saw the hand, I freaked out times 10. And this is all in the same pile. This particular location I am in is exceptional. I mean, there's the bones are around here. Everything fossilized in the most magnificent way. And that's the Triassic era. So that didn't happen 250 million years ago, and it didn't last 50 million years. It lasted a weekend. Okay, my outstanding friends, it just gets better and better and better. And the reason is, I don't want to brag, because it's true, and if it's true, it ain't bragging. So, I have more researchers working with me than anybody in the world right now. Because I have been showing things that nobody else will show, because they're so mind-bending that people consider you insane when you show them. But other people see these things like this. Who the hell can explain that? Nobody. So they stay away from it. Well, I'm not sure what it is either, but I'm going to tell you what. I look at it with a whole different perspective because I see this as all biology, even though these little tiles look like somebody must have put them here. We're going to go through this in great detail. It's only a couple minutes long. And the guy only has a very small number of subscribers, so I'm going to point out his channel, and I'm hoping maybe he'll work with me because he's going out asking questions. And he's in that just getting started phase now. And I'd like to help him. I hope I don't hurt him because a lot of people see me as offensive. I don't mean to be. I just need to present this stuff, and and there's so much pushback that I do get kind of testy, let's say, at times. I get, combative. Who wouldn't? It's 15 years of this. With the evidence all the way 10 years ago, I'm to DNA and CAT scans and specimens, and not one single person in the realm of academia or research or any of these people making all these claims every day. What did I show you what they just said about Mars? It's hard to understand how they keep doing this when I can present all this evidence and it's just ignored. So, but we're going to be looking into this. Okay, my friends, hold on to your chapeaus because we are going to be talking about structures on Earth that are just so stunning that nobody can explain them. And therefore, mainstream stands back and just doesn't say anything because whatever they say is going to be nonsense. Nobody understands them. I don't understand them either, all of them. I understand a lot of them now because I can see with Mudfossil eyes. I have understood this for 15 years. And as you know, I do this daily, one after another, one after another, one after another. But I have so many people now that have taken an interest. When I started, the guy's crazy, he's insane, just stay away from him. And that's what happened. They put me in a box over on the side, and I remained there. However, enough people have seen that are interested. That's what I need, is interested people. And that's basically all I have. And there's a very small, limited number of them, but there's at least a couple thousand. And that is a huge number of researchers, and they're submitting stuff to me every day. I get so much stuff; it's hard to keep up with it. But I like it, and this was one of the things submitted to me today from a video that a guy in Australia did, and I'm going to talk about it. But this is the kind of stuff. I have more researchers than anybody in the world, and I understand the biology, the chemistry, the physics, everything. All 9 yards. Anybody wants to confront me from mainstream, that's what I've been waiting for. This never happens. I have too much evidence to support my side of things. So whatever they say is going to come out sounding kind of nonsensical against my material evidence, DNA and CAT scans, specimens. They can be retested. There's nothing here that is hidden, and there's nothing here that will not be revealed. To quote somebody in the past. Okay, my friends, with all the evidence I have presented, including the DNA tests, the CAT scans, the specimens, the anatomy, and everything now, and I also alerted everybody about this, and there has been no response whatsoever from anybody. They refuse to examine it because it destroys the things they said. And this is the stuff that's up on Mars. These are sarcomeres. They say they accumulated over millions of years. No, they didn't. These are little pieces of connective tissue that pinch in and out. They're called sarcomeres. All of this is red blood that eroded out. And this is from muscle. Gigantic creatures. They're just everywhere. You see what they are? Those are those sarcomeres. That's what sarcomeres look like. They're those. Only they eroded. This is an actual rock with sarcomeres in it and all of the different blood. This is muscle from a heart. These are the sarcomeres of a living, probably autopsied heart. This is also sarcomeres from a heart. All of this stuff I'm showing is actual physical evidence to support my statements that the things on Mars are biological. That, my friends, is an artery. All right? And it's supporting the sarcomeres that surround it. These are the sarcomeres. That's the artery and that's the vein. And these are the connective tissue parts, and all the rest has eroded out and dusted off and left the legs of the, they call it the Mars crab. Those are arteries. I mean, this is the artery. Those are blood vessels that invest into here to send that blood into this matrix of muscle. All right, this is actually a rock. This is the surface of the rock, which I believe in this case was skin, and this is the muscle just below the tissue. And this is blood. That's blood servicing these sarcomeres. Now, where's it coming from? I believe there would be an artery right up in here somewhere, and it's draining down into this area, feeding these sarcomeres. You have to have tons of blood they need. And if you don't think muscles and so forth get that big, what do you think this is right here? This, my friends, is connective tissue. This is the sternum area right up here. This is breast tissue. Totally different than what's below it, which is muscle and tendon. This is the structural part of a body that's just barely eroded. And it is a female breast. Look at this carefully. Look at this structure carefully. Now look at this structure carefully. This is what it is. The sternum is up here. You have this areola, I don't know what they call this part, to be honest with you, lobules and ducts and so forth are in there, as we can see in the other one. And up in here is where all your connective tissue goes. And this chick looked like she was in pretty good shape. I mean, that's not bad. And that's what the muscle tissue is. It's just what it is. And those are the lobules. There's a couple of little lobules right there. The sternum comes right down to here, right in between the breasts. You see it? There's the sternum coming down right in between the breasts, and there's the lobules and all that little, these bumps that were on the top. We just have no idea about what things are like on this earth, because it's been just denied and ignored and covered up. Now it's being covered up. I could see where there was a time when they just, you know, this is a little crazy to think this way, but no. However, it destroys everything that they've told us was true. Like, in other words, millions of years in one picture. No, this is all one creature's body, which is a tendon. Right here is a tendon. You see that ball right there? That ball attaches to a bone. The bone is eroded away because they didn't last in this boiling, salty, salacious ooze. And also the muscle deteriorated. Now, I have a complete setup here with all this. And the tendon is the tough part. And that's why it's just sticking up here. It's not millions of years. That was like over a weekend. The thing died and that was it. So we know this isn't right. Let me show you mine. I got it here somewhere. Here, right here. All right, the bone is up here. And I have another picture showing that. I suppose I should show that to you. This is the brown tendon. This is what was sticking up out of the ocean. This erodes away because it's muscle and it's connective tissue to a degree, and it transitions into really pure muscle after a while. And it feeds with all this red blood feeding it. These are arteries. And it's feeding this. You see how it's pink here and brown there? I don't know if you can pick that up with the camera. You see how it's pink there and brown there? Maybe you don't. I don't know. Hold on, let me turn some lights off. Sometimes that makes the difference. Sometimes it does not. So we have to see. Now, however, again, the bone is out here, and that is that round spot right there, right in the middle of the tendon. That allows the tendon to twist just ever so much. This is tough. This stuff here, that's why it didn't erode. And it's all these little layers. As you can see, there's nothing hidden here. All those layers and that one big ball right there invests into the bone. All right, here it is with the bone. This is what we call bone in. And this is just from here forward. See the circle right there? That's that spot that I showed you on the one sticking up out of the ocean. And all it is this part right here. Because that's the tough spot. It's this right here. You see how it's brown? This is pinkish. And then this somehow locks into the bone. And I'm not exactly sure how that structure works, or even if it's the way they work now. I found all kinds of things. They're not working the same way now as they did before. Feet and so forth, the no toes and the spring foot and all that stuff. Totally different. Hold on, let me put this light on. So, again, I don't know if the things are the exact same now, but this makes total sense. This allows this muscle and so forth to do this kind of a thing. Pivoting here. So what does it have to do? They have to slide ever so much like this, the fibers. That's why there's so many different layers of fibers. And then there's an abrupt transition where it snaps right into the muscle. Right there. And it still works that way today, I think. All right, so, again, I hate to keep complaining, but I showed this 10 years ago to NASA, to Yale, to Harvard, to all of them. And they turned a blind eye to it. However, NASA did actually fund Yale to look into basically the same thing. And Yale agreed. It said, yes, these things were before there was even any other life on Earth, because it basically was wiped out at that time. And I think I've shown you all of that, or I will show you, and I have shown it many, many times. I presented all my stuff to Yale primarily first, because they're right down the street, first of all. Secondly, they're supposed to be the top ones. And they failed miserably at doing their job, and to this very day. And I presented all this stuff. Now, these are the things I presented to NASA, to Yale, and all of them. Mars blueberries, Mars Morse code, the Mars crab, the Mars mussel. All this stuff is up on Mars. And I know it's there. This dust it can't happen on Earth because there's no runoff whatsoever of water. And then that's what it is on Mars. It's just dry. And it's because it was impacted by Venus. And here's the impact site right here. It hit right here, straight across. Velikovsky recorded all this in the ancient texts. Every culture had the same story. This is wider than the United States. That's wide. Can you imagine if that hit the United States? Now, what hit that? Can I show you what hit that? What was written in the ancient texts? They say Venus hit that. Well, is there any evidence of that? Well, I would say so, yes. There's Venus right there. Here's where the impact site is from Venus. Now, Venus is spinning backwards, which would create an enormous electric discharge. And to me, that's an electric discharge. If you showed that to any welder, any guy that does welding or knows what welding scars look like, that is them. That is them. Now, did it hit, wherever it hit, I don't care. But that's an impact. To me, that's an impact site, virtually no question. And this is the size of Earth. Now, this almost hit us, that's what's caused the Mudfossils. And that's what I presented. Again, I presented all this Mudfossil stuff. Mine has DNA tests and CAT scans and specimens, and I got all that stuff. And their bones and all that. No, they can't turn into a bone. Well, now they agree, yes, it can. Everything can turn into a Mudfossil. And even can turn out to be like actual meat. Looks exactly like meat, has every single detail. And they were giants. That's a hair follicle. That's where your erector pili muscle attaches. That's the sebaceous gland right there. That's the root. That's the vein and artery at the bottom. This is a 2-inch wide hair follicle. Now, It's time we pay attention to what is here right on Earth that we can look at. And then again, Bennu, they went on and took a sample from Bennu, which is a heart, which is an asteroid. They brought it back here, and it has the same sarcomeres. It's got all these muscle sarcomeres. It's got 2 layers of phospholipids, which are the phosphates that coat the muscle sarcomeres. And they spent $1.16 billion to go out and bring that back, and they refused to communicate. I've been talking about this for over a year, and the samples are in their hands. Well, let me show you the sample. There's no missing these. It can't be denied now. This is simply undeniable. This white stuff with a certain type of photography, they can see it's phosphates. And they said, "Ooh, this is a big surprise." It's called the phosphate surprise. This one shows the same piece here, but not highlighted with that certain light. This is a membrane. You see this? That's a membrane. Phosphates make membranes. Membranes are made out of phospholipids, and they end up being phosphates. That's a phosphate layer. That's a phosphate layer. It sandwiches muscle sarcomeres. Did I show you those before? I know I did. And here they are. That's theirs. This is what muscle sarcomeres look like. And that's in a rock, same as they brought back from the heart, which is Bennu. And in the anatomical, this is sarcomeres. That's what they are. The red stuff runs out, and it leaves these layers of really tough material. But they break right down. All of that stuff runs out, because that's just like gluey stuff. But the connective tissue is a different story. However, see, it slides together like this. This is relaxed. This is contracted muscle. But when the thing dies, it's relaxed, and then all that stuff runs out, and then these erode coming down, and that's what we find in the Mars crab. Now, this is 10 years ago, I guess they went up there. 2015, I think it was. 2014. And as soon as I saw this, I reported this to NASA, to Yale, to all of them. I said, "You guys got to pay attention to what you're seeing here." And the next thing I know, Yale put out a paper after, well, let me show you. I think I'll explain it to you. But in 2015, I put my paper out, Fascia-Facilitated Fossilization, which created all this. And I explained virtually all the details to Derek Briggs at Yale and to everybody at NASA. And all of them. I flooded the internet, and they just basically destroyed me. Now, I don't know who did it. But all they did was link me to that I must be crazy, I must be insane, I must think the Earth is flat, and I'm just a wacky guy. And after that, somehow they put you in a box, and I'm in that box. So I'm going to just explain to you a little more detail about this and why I'm upset. This goes back. My stuff goes back 15 years when I started to disclose this stuff. And we should be looking at this with a little more clarity. And when they sent back all these pictures, this is the same as a Moki marbles. Look up Moki marbles and Mars blueberries. This is the basement layer of skin. This is the layer of interstitium balls. And all the flesh is eroded away and left the balls. And they're exactly identical to these same balls that are right here. Those balls are right under the skin. All that stuff had eroded away and left just the balls. They're tough. I think you can see those balls. You see those little balls right there? That's what keeps your body in check, your skin coming back to where it's supposed to be. And they just discovered this layer in 2018. I wrote about this layer in 2015. So I'm a little annoyed at the fact that they have kept this from being public for so long. They had all kinds of articles about the Mars Morse code, the Mars crab, the Mars this, fossils found on Mars, all that stuff. And they just immediately crushed it so that they could continue getting their funding. That's as far as I can figure out. I can't think of any other reason not to do their job. And to me, to ignore this, being pushed in their faces, you know that I do this daily, and to ignore this is now not just incompetence. It goes way beyond that. This is just absolute denial and abuse of the public trust. these are supposed to be as teachers and our instructors and the ones that we give our trust to. And it's just not happening. It's just not the way it works. The way it works is if they can keep you under their thumb, that's where you will remain, my friends. So, okay, so my point being is, this is how all of this stuff, which is normally real heavy, 2 times at least heavier than water at the bottom of the ocean, came up, and it's what Yale says nobody would know about. They would have never known about this if it were not for the quirk in the chemistry of the ancient oceans. And they still don't know why that happened. Now, they say they found these marine fossils, sandstone, worldwide. And they're soft creatures of bodies hundreds of millions of years ago. They take their name from a fossil deposit in South Australia. They just take their name because they want to make it sound special. The fossils of mudfossils are found worldwide, in this rocks ranging in age of 541 to 580 million years old. That's not true at all. It's nowhere near that old. Every one of mine came right off the surface of the earth, and there were all these mud fossils, which are what they're talking about, only they can't accept the fact that there were giants and there were humans and there was creatures, and they weren't just slimy little petri dish things. Now listen to this. Listen carefully. This makes no sense whatsoever. All right, first of all, they're found worldwide. And it's in its 3 layers, red bed, gray clay, black cap. Right? The creatures themselves were as small as a few millimeters, little tiny things, and as large as a meter, they say, and lived in dense, diverse communities on the sea floor. That means the entire Earth was a sea floor because they're found worldwide. So, right now we say the Earth is nothing but one big ocean. All right, many of these creatures, many of them, are outright bizarre in appearance and do not resemble any organism alive today. I agree. Ediacaran said that. She's a postdoctoral at Yale, first author of the study. We'd like to understand the relationship to the complex animals that we see now today that evolved shortly afterwards. Well, they were the complex animals, and some of them survived, most of them didn't. The gigantic ones didn't. All the biggest ones died off. They would have been boiled or had nothing to eat or drowned or destroyed. They were destroyed. Now listen to this. Are these Ediacaran organisms some sort of failed evolutionary experiment? Yes. God said, this is out of control. I'm going to wipe them off the face of the earth. And that's exactly what he did. All right? They said in the ancient texts that Jupiter sent Venus to wipe out the giants on Earth. All right? So are they a failed evolutionary experiment? Yes, they are. Do they include the ancestors of the animals? Yes, they do, because they were them. A big part of the answer involves figuring out how to able to form. How did these fossils form? I know, and I told them exactly. Now listen to this. Totally wrong. Animals were entirely soft-bodied. They lived before the evolution of shells, teeth, or bones, which are typically the only parts of an organism to become fossilized. That's wrong. Soft tissues fossilize much easier than the bones and stuff. That's just scraps. Now, what the researchers realized was the ocean during the time of the Ediacaran was much richer in dissolved silica from the silicaceous ooze coming up to the surface. So the silica was up here, and that does form quickly and hard. This enabled the transformation of the loose sand, no, it was mud, around the animals to form them into rock over a matter of hours or years rather than millions and thousands of years. Now they say, listen to this. This just makes no sense whatsoever. None, zero. The Ediacaran organisms were rapidly buried by sand during underwater storm events. So in other words, they say, oh, they're just living there, everything's wild. Of course, the whole world was an ocean, and then all of a sudden they had some big event of storm, and everything was buried instantly, the entire world. underwater storm events. Process of cementing the sand grains must have happened rapidly, otherwise the time carcass would have rotted away. No, the carcasses don't rot in these conditions. First of all, they were boiled. Secondly, they were in this siliceous ooze. Team conducted this research using microscopes, just like I did. The research gave them to measure the elemental composition of cements on a micron scale. Now listen to this. It was co-authored by Derek Briggs. He's the Yale's Hutchinson Professor of Geology Geophysics. Well, I presented all my stuff to Derek years before this, including my DNA reports, CAD scans, all my evidence of specimens. I presented it to him online, and then I see he took credit for it later. So he's the curator of invertebrate paleontology at Yale, and everybody said go to him, and I did, and then he sort of just would not engage, and so I tried to go other places, and they said, well, you're right, and I'm right down the street from Yale, virtually 15 minutes away, and everybody said go to Yale. That's the kind of stuff they do. I said, well, they won't talk to me, and they said, well, that's because you are an idiot. So that's how it's been for the last 15 years because of this guy right here, Derek Briggs. And who paid for this? We did. We paid for all of that. National Science Foundation, that's us. American Philosophical Society, NASA. Because I presented all my evidence to NASA about the Mars crab, the Mars blueberries, the Mars Morse code. And then they went to Yale and gave them a ton of money. Now, this is all NASA Complex, NASA Autobot. That's all our money. I don't know how much they gave them, but I'm sure it was substantial. And, you know, I had done all this research already and presented it to Derek Briggs. This is not right. It's just not right. They're just using us as a piggy bank.